Thank you for joining me. In this episode, we're going to explore a big question. What does trust in God mean? A poor man is traveling along the road, carrying a heavy bag. Along comes a wealthy nobleman in a carriage drawn by horses and offers a lift to the traveler, who accepts and climbs into the carriage. A short while later, the owner of the carriage notices that his new passenger is sitting with his heavy bag still on his shoulders. He says to him, "Why are you still carrying your bag? Why don't you put it down?" The traveler answers, "I feel bad enough that you stopped to give me a lift and that your horses have the extra burden of my weight. The least I can do is carry my own bag." The nobleman exclaims, "Don't be silly. The horses are carrying you and your bundles anyway." On Shabbat, we remind ourselves that God carries us. We don't carry our burdens on our own. And on Shabbat, we can put them down. Faith in God is brought into focus on Shabbat. We acknowledge God as the creator of our world, who took us out of Egypt and guided our destiny. Shabbat helps us transform faith from an intellectual understanding that God is in control into trust, a feeling of security and confidence. This trust does not mean that we believe everything will turn out the way we want. Instead, it is the understanding that everything that happens in our lives is part of God's plan. Whether we experience pain or pleasure, triumph or failure, abundance or scarcity, God provides us with the experiences we need to fulfill our potential. There is great comfort in knowing that life is not random and that God is in control and carrying us even when we don't understand why things are happening. We remind ourselves of these truths when we look at the two challahs on the table at each Shabbat meal, representing the double portion of manna that fell on Friday, so that the Jewish people would have food for Shabbat and not have to go out and collect on the sacred day. Each week, seeing those two challahs, we remember how God provided for our people in the desert for 40 years and that our own sustenance today is just as miraculous, that it comes from heaven even if it doesn't fall from the sky. We try to model our ancestors' serene faith, how despite being in the most vulnerable circumstances, they felt at peace, confident that God would look after them. This applies to every aspect of our well-being, health, family, success, and safety. We rely on God for it all. We may no longer be wandering in the desert, but our future is equally unknown and unknowable, and fundamentally, we are just as vulnerable. Each week, Shabbat instills in us trust in God to meet an uncertain future confidently. I invite you to learn more by reading my new book, Shabbat, A Day to Create Yourself, and find out how you can use Shabbat to get creative and change your life.